You're listening to the Journey to Launch podcast, how to live a life you love and can afford with Kumiko Love. She bought her dream home in cash and paid off over $77,000 of debt. Find out how here. Okay, Journeyers, I'm really excited because I have the one and only Kumiko on the podcast, the Budget Mom. Hi, Kumiko.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So Kumiko, I just want to tell a little backstory of how I met you. I'm not sure if you remember, but we sat together or next to each other at a conference, at a personal finance conference. And we were up for some awards. And honestly, it was like the first time, like that was like me first realizing kind of like who you were. And you were so nice and down to earth. And I remember like looking up your brand when you said like who you were. And then I was like, oh my gosh, like your story, your platform, like it was so impressive. And the fact that you were so cool and down to earth, like at the same time, like in person was awesome. So I just wanted to say that so everyone could hear that.
Thank you.
So there are a lot of people who know about you, and if some of your people are coming to listen, they're getting excited about who you are. But then there are some people who don't know who you are, some journeyers. So that's what I call my crew who listen to the podcast. So can you just give like a brief or just rundown, and we'll get more deeper into things about who Kumiko is, like the Budget Mom. How did you start this platform that you have, and what is it?
Yeah, so, the Budget Mom was really created out of my own personal struggles with money management, especially as a single mom. And so I started the Budget Mom to really find a community of other single moms or other people who really understood what I was going through. And as I went searching for them, they were searching for me. And that's how this absolutely amazing community was born. But it really started with just me not really knowing what I was doing. It was my journey of trying to figure things out. I had my son and I knew things had to change drastically with my finances. And so that's really where the Budget Mom started.
And when you started, so can you give us a sense of where you were financially at that point? I know you said you had your son and that like helped you really realize what you wanted to do, but like, how were you with your money before you,
I was the typical person that played the game of if I don't see it, I don't have to deal with it. But I was very good in the sense that all of my bills were being paid on time. All of my minimum payments were being paid on time. But I was not looking at the big picture. I didn't see the overall balance of my debt. For me, financially, I was basically living paycheck to paycheck. I had a ton of student loan debt, a ton of credit card debt. Right before I really got into my journey and started the Budget Mom, I was in a severe motorcycle accident. It was a hit and run that left me in the hospital for 3 days with a shattered wrist, a bruised pelvic bone, and a pretty beaten up face with no medical insurance and no motorcycle insurance. And so I really started this journey dealing with medical debt. So that's kind of financially where I was.
Do you remember how much like debt, like if total altogether you were in?
Yeah, back in 2011, I started around about $50,000 in debt. About 35 of that was student loans.
Yeah. And do you mind sharing kind of like, because, it's funny, people listening to this, they have different professions, right? Like they come from different backgrounds of professional work. And I always think just providing context maybe on what you did previously before, like, you became an entrepreneur, like what you did, so people can get a sense of your journey to where you are.
Yeah. So, it's so funny, my background. I actually graduated with a finance and accounting major, and I minored in economics. I got out of college and I stepped into the real world, and I got my first job working in the financial industry in a financial advisor firm. And the funny thing is, it was then that I realized that my finance degree, I did not learn a whole bunch about personal finance. It's kind of crazy to think about that, but I learned corporate structure finance. I learned analytics. I learned, economics. It's not like anyone ever sat me down and said, hey, Miko, you need to create a budget. That didn't happen in my life until the financial advisor I worked for sat me down and told me to do it. And that's when the big realization happened. So I was actually in the financial advisor space for about 8 years, when I ultimately quit my full-time job to work for the Budget Mom full-time.
Yeah, it's interesting because I find that, I also majored in business and with a specialization in finance, but you don't, like you said, you don't learn about this stuff. And then I went to work in the corporate field, in the corporate world, and in investments. And even though and I know people who worked at my job who are very good at the spreadsheets and the corporate side of things and investing like millions of dollars, right? And then I know that personally, it was like a mess. So I think it's interesting how, we can be so smart, right? And that just shows people that it doesn't matter about how smart on paper you are with anything. Like your finances are totally different. So you don't have to be numbers smart. You don't have to be any of those things that you think maybe you should have before you can tackle your personal finances.
Right. I think it's funny because you don't have to be that textbook smart, right? I thought that if I was textbook smart, as when it came to finance, that I would be okay. And the reality was, it's more about a true self-discovery of who you are. And that's the hardest part.
Yeah. And do you think also income plays a role in it? So because I know I was on the trajectory when I started working to earn, if I stayed in my job, got the bonuses and raises, that I'll have enough. And so the way I figured in the beginning was just I'll just earn enough to pay for the things I want. Getting the big picture, with your money was more about I have enough money, I'm bringing in money, so I should be okay. Do you think sometimes people who earn a decent amount are not thinking about the bigger picture because they're just I can work and just pay my bills forever? Isn't that what you're supposed to do?
Yeah, I definitely think, it's funny that you bring that up because when I was going through that, I always thought to myself, well, if I could just earn more, And you get to a point where you finally are earning more, but the progress isn't coming. At least not the progress and that type of value in your life isn't there. Because that value in your life definitely comes from other things other than just earning more.
Yeah, definitely. So you had your son, and I think for especially myself and probably people listening, when you do start, if you have children, that helps you a lot because you're just okay, I have another mouth to feed and I don't want to mess things up. I want to give more for them. But what were some of the first things you started to do practically to get on track?
So the first thing was just awareness. It was just literally making that decision in my life. Okay, no more. This is not the life I want for me and my son, and I have to make a change. And even getting to that point, a lot of the times is really hard for people because you have to have that underlying almost a rock bottom. You have to get to that point where you literally just, it's not what you want and you know that. And that was a huge driving force for me on my financial journey. Another thing was really becoming in tune with my spending. It's another part of awareness that was brought into my life. It's funny because people say, I'm good at budgeting or I'm financially well off. And they say that for the pure fact of they're paying their bills on time. When they think about budgeting, people automatically think about bills. And budgeting is so much more than just paying the bills. People say, I'm fine. I'm 1 month ahead on my bills. I'm doing really good. But there's also other aspects of our lives, the things that we are truly searching for that also need to be filled. And they go so often, they are forgotten. So yeah, I think awareness was key and just getting to that point of my rock bottom and realizing that life change needed to happen.
Yeah. And so you started back then, did you call yourself the budget mom or did you evolve to that? Did you just start out saying, all right, I'm just going to stick to this budget and start this platform to help show what I'm doing? How did you build
Yes, it
that?
was so funny because I sat down to write my first blog post and, I had no idea what I was doing at the time. I had no idea what a blog was. But I'm sitting here, working on it and I'm like, well, what do I call myself? And I thought to myself, well, I'm talking about budgeting and I'm a mom. So it kind of just worked. It worked out that way. And I'm really glad that I did that because, you know, budgeting and finances is obviously all I'm passionate about, but people ask me all the time, well, Miko, you're a mom. I get that. But there's another reason why mom is really important in my, you know, in the Budget Mom brand is this is a generational change. And I know that if I help the moms, if I help the adults, I'm also helping the children in some way, some form. And so that's another meaning that it's kind of progressed to over time.
Right. I love that. So for you, were you still working full time in your career and doing Budget Mom on the side, like with the blogs and things like that?
Yes, I actually worked about the equivalent of 2 full-time jobs for over 3 years. Now, the funny thing about my journey is I could have left my full-time job a year after starting the Budget Mom. A year after I started the Budget Mom, I was actually making just about what I was at my normal job, which was a goal of mine. But I stayed because, one, I loved my job. I absolutely loved it. I loved the work I was doing with people. But at the same time, I knew that just making what I was making at my full-time job wasn't enough. I needed to be financially prepared if I was going to take my business on full-time. And for me, that meant having an emergency fund established, not just for me personally, but for my business. Because I knew that I was taking a risk. And if my business failed, I had to be able to take care of my son and fill those needs. So I had to do it in a very responsible way.
Yeah, I love that you're bringing that up and how you had to delay, you know, jumping ship. Also love that you talked about loving your job, because not everyone hates their job and, you know, it's just like, or is running from something. I think if you do love your job, and I would love to talk, we're going to talk more about entrepreneurship too, because I know I have a lot of people who they're in debt or they're trying to reach financial freedom and independence. So part of that too is like doing something on the side. So whether that's kind of like a simple side hustle of selling things and they're like, I have no like desire to do this full time, or they're like, you know what, I'm really good at this thing and I may want to take it full time one day. So I think being real with people about like, that's a process to be prepared to do that. Right?
Yes.
Like you just, and especially when you have responsibilities like a mortgage and kids, right?
Right. It's a very scary thing, but for me, leaving my full-time job was probably one of the most scariest things I've ever did. And that's the honest truth, because you're going from a guaranteed W-2 paycheck to being completely dependent on your business. That is absolutely terrifying, knowing that the food you put on the table and the clothes you put on your child's back is coming from you and solely you. I think that's another reason why I took financially preparing myself so seriously, is because of that reason.
Yeah. And I think the and the thing about it too is like, I guess we should say at the time, you know, it was just you, right? Raising your son or being more solely responsible.
Yeah. Yes.
So, and I do want to just bring that up because, you know, everyone has a different circumstance and situation. And sometimes maybe you do have a partner. So I know for me, right, when I jumped ship, like part of my life boat or vest, even though we have 3 kids, we live in New York City, was my husband still worked. So, you know, my advantage in that was his income doesn't cover everything. So we still had to be really prepared for all our bills, you know, and taking my income away, but that was still something to consider, right? And I think, especially if like you're a single mom or it's just you have to be just extra careful about the steps you're taking.
Sure. You know, it was like, it's almost like a two-edged sword, because it's terrifying, but at the same time, I knew that it could absolutely change me and my son's life. And I knew that we could also change other people's lives. And that passion, I went to bed every single night thinking about how I could help people. I woke up every single day, like running to my notebook, like, this is how I can help people today. Like, this is it. And so I think that passion also was a driving force for me as well.
Yeah. And it's kind of cool to think about it in that way, in a way where when your back is against the wall, when there is no other option and like you have to make it work, sometimes I find that as a motivating factor. Like, of course, sure, it's great to have assurances and maybe, you know, an emergency fund, like still do it the smart way. But sometimes when you are like faced with like, listen, I have to put food on the table and pay this bill, pay these bills so I can provide for my son, and I want to help as many people, like you tend to find the, you know, you get that courage, you get that like by any means necessary, right? To do what you have to do.
Definitely. Yes, definitely.
So in terms of you, so as you start to grow the Budget Mom platform and, you know, you jump into like full-time entrepreneurship with the Budget Mom, for you, was most of what you were doing basically the trying to figure out like how to, like, was it, I know you talked about helping people, but was it more like, were you thinking more about like product-based helping, service-based business helping? And I think it's, you know, because we're in the personal finance space and there's so many different ways like you can help people. Like what made you pick, because I know you right now you focus on products. What made you pick that versus like coaching? And maybe you did that before, but what made you pick that?
Well, that's a question. You know, I had like I said, when I started the Budget Mom, I did it to build a community, never to start a business. For me, my passion and drive was making sure that another single mom out there didn't feel the way I did at one point in time, to make that journey a little bit easier for them, a little less scary, a little less lonely. However, when I started sharing my journey with the rest of the world, what I was doing in my real life to help me, so many people were coming and saying, hey, this could really help me. Is there a way you could provide that for me? And once we started providing those things, which were free in the beginning, I realized the absolute overwhelm of demand. And time after time, I was hearing people say, this changed my life. And I thought to myself, we have to get this out to the masses. We absolutely have to make sure that we can offer this amazing product in the most affordable way at the best quality. And that's kind of how it came about.
Can you talk through about like, because you're really disciplined, which I think is good because then it makes your audience like want to be more disciplined. But like you literally show up every day on Instagram. You're always sharing tips. And I'm like, geez, I need to be more like the Budget Mom. Like I need to show more background of like what I'm doing. And like, I'm just like, oh, but like share your, like how you manage your money, right? Because that's how you help your audience manage their money. So how do you do that? Like in terms, I know you use envelopes and the binder and all that.
Yes. So it's funny that you talk about, you know, I made a promise and I set out on a mission to not just tell people how to budget their money and manage their finances. I wanted to show them. And the only way that I knew how to do that was what it looked like in someone's real life. And that was my life. And I think too, showing up every day for my readers, which I've done the last 3 years, it's my way of showing that I care. It's my connection with my readers that is so absolutely important to me. It's one of the ways that I do that. You know, how I manage my money with the budget by paycheck method, it was literally created out of all of my failed attempts in the past. It was literally a mindset shift that said, okay, I may have failed in these areas, but I was also really successful in others. And I picked it apart. I learned more about myself. And ultimately, it's the calendar method, it's the paycheck method, and it's the cash envelope method, all rolled into a series of steps on creating not just a budget, but a realistic budget that actually works in people's lives.
Okay, for those that have no clue, right? Maybe they're just like finding out about budgeting. Can you like quickly describe like what the calendar budget is, what the paycheck budget is, and then
yes. So the calendar method is essentially listing all of your bills and expenses on a monthly calendar and writing down your pay dates on your calendar so you know what expenses need to be included in your paychecks. It's almost like an overview of the month all on one sheet. The paycheck method was absolutely the life changer for me. It's budgeting when you get paid. Now, I know when a lot of people go out and they search on Google how to create a budget, what is the number one thing they're thrown? They're thrown a monthly template. We automatically assume that we are budgeting our money monthly. But in my mind does not work that way. So I struggled. And so I was paying my bills when I got paid. And one day I'm like, wait a minute, if I'm paying my bills when I get paid, why aren't I budgeting the rest of my money when I get paid? And it clicked for me. It was an absolute life changer for me. So the paycheck budget method is budgeting your money every single time you get a paycheck. Now the paycheck or the cash envelope method is essentially all of your variable spending, the things that fluctuate up and down every month. It's gas, it's food, it's fun purchases, it's clothing, all of the things that doesn't have necessarily a set amount. We spend with cash and cash envelopes for dedicated categories in our budget.
Yeah, I love that breakdown. Thanks. And the cash envelope, I do want to talk about that because I have never really tried that system. I'm debt free other than our mortgage, but I tend to use my credit cards for points, So I would love to understand your position on that. And also, because I know there's some people listening though, that they don't need to jump into credit cards right now. They need to do the paycheck, or they need to do the envelope system. So,
yes.
Right?
Yeah. So it's so funny because I am that person, and I will be 100% truthful and admit it. I've been budgeting my money successfully for the last 9 years. I am completely 100% debt free, including no mortgage. I am still telling you, I am the person that should not use credit cards. I know that about myself. I am the type of person that spends on a credit card and says, hey, I'll just pay it off later, and I never do. My spending gets out of control because I'm a spender at heart, mixed with being a brand junkie. Okay, that is a very dangerous formula. And not only that, I just got done paying off all of my debt at the end of 2018, and debt is still a very, very scary thing to me. It still terrifies me. And so I'm not ready to use the credit cards. However, I'm also the type of person that knows the benefits that could be possible with using a credit card. And I always say, go for it. If you are responsible, you are paying off your credit cards every single month before interest hits, and you're doing it in a responsible way, why not get the points? I wish I could, but the cash envelope resonates with me. And I think almost too, I've been doing it for so long that when I'm not using and being an all cash spender, my motivation decreases. That's where I get my motivation. It's what allows me to bring creativity into my budget. It was what makes budgeting fun for me.
Yeah.
And so even after 9 years, I think I will always, in some sense, will be an all cash spender. I don't think that will ever change with me. However, I'm hoping one day, at least for my business, I can jump on with the business credit card to at least earn travel points.
But I love that you know yourself, and that's the first step. It's like know thyself, right? And
yes.
It looks, and even the thing about it too, which I think is pretty interesting, is that you can follow like people like maybe, you like my style and how I talk about, budgeting and financial independence. You might like Kumiko style, but you are still different in a sense, right? Like you can have people that follow you and like your whole style, but say, listen, I'm going to get those credit card points, right? And I could have people who like my style was just like, the credit cards, not my thing. And so I think it's important to understand that you can pick and choose the things that work for you. Like it's not just all or nothing, but that to know yourself is the first step, and to be honest.
Oh yeah, for sure. You have to ask yourself the hard questions and then give yourself grace to answer those questions honestly. Because until you ask those hard questions, and I always have said from day one, a debt payoff journey is not about the amount of debt you're paying off. It's not about the debt payment, okay? It's not about paying off debt. It's a self-discovery journey. The hard part starts with you. And what I mean by that, you will learn more about yourself on your financial journey than you will at any other time in your life. And that is a guarantee if you are doing the hard work. And it's that hard work that isn't only going to create change right now, it's going to create lasting change where you get out of debt and you stay out of debt.
Yeah, it's the person you become on the journey. Like
Oh,
it's
for
that.
sure.
Yeah, right. The habits you pick up, the discipline you pick up, the what you can. It's the person, right? Not just these
Yes.
milestones. That's what's important. You talked about brand junkie, which I think we should just touch upon, because I think for a lot of people, that's what they are in certain areas, and that causes them to spend. Do you want to like share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, you know, when I first had to say that out loud, it was really embarrassing, because I'm like, wait a minute, I am not that person that like buys things because of the brand name, but I am. And that was one of the things that I learned about myself and noticed that I was doing on my self-discovery journey. I gravitated towards certain brands. I paid more than what I had for certain brands, and I bought things because of the brand logo. Simply put, I was actually sucked into sales a lot easier because of the brand. Being a brand junkie isn't necessarily a bad thing, I've learned, but it is if you're not aware that you're doing it. And for so long, I was not aware that I had these emotional connections to brands that I did. And now, learning to be a patient spender, I can still get the brands that I like, even though they're fairly more expensive, because I've also developed the whole motto of quality over quantity on my journey. But I'm a patient spender. I can sit back and save for what I want rather than impulse buying because I have this straight emotional connection with brand names.
Yeah, yeah. And so many people maybe nodding, but like, yep, I think that's what I was doing before, or what I continue to do. And it's no shame, like you said, like, I mean, and think about it, like, this is the point. Like, you have people, very, very brilliant people in, high up executives in rooms, like knowing exactly like what colors to put, what advertising to use to draw you in and hook you. Like, that's the point, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah,
so,
and
yeah.
the perfect example of this is Nike. They grab an emotional connection with their readers at a very, very early age. And how do they do that? Through sports. So for me, my brand junkie like obsession was Nike, because even throughout middle school, I associated the brand Nike with being a good athlete. So when I was in sports, all the major athletes were wearing Nike, but I also associated it with the cool thing. Okay, in my school, the cool thing in, grade school and middle school was having a pair of new Nikes. So at a very early age, that emotional connection and tie, that psychological trigger was established. And it's something that I've carried all the way my entire life, the last 34, 35 years. And it's funny, it wasn't something I even realized until just, 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, yeah, it's really amazing too. And it's like how you perceive other people will perceive you because you have this thing.
Exactly. Exactly.
Which, and at the end of the day, like, as long as you're consciously doing it, and it's like, yeah, sure, like, I like this because I feel better in it. And yeah, it's a statement to everyone else. That's okay, right? Like, as long as you can, you know what your goals are because you've set them and you're following along with whatever budget or financial plan you have, and so you can do both. It's just that you're recognizing when you're making those trade-offs and decisions.
Right. That's the freedom that budgeting gives us. It's a freedom for us to choose how we spend our money. And if we are in love with a certain brand because we love the material, or we think it's good quality, or we like the logo, or whatever it may be, if you have a budget plan in place, you have the freedom to choose to do that. And I think that's also really important to mention.
Yeah, yeah. So you were able to do something really amazing recently. You were able to buy your dream home in cash. Like, I'm gonna say that again. Kumiko was able to buy her dream home in cash. She has no mortgage. I'd love to hear the journey to that, like how you made that possible. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah, so all along my home journey, people always told me, Miko, you don't have to buy it in cash. It doesn't have to be this wonderful dream home. Your home is where you hang your hat. But for me, it had a much deeper meaning. When I got divorced in 2011, I lost everything. And not just, I don't mean I walked away from the home I built or the life I built. I mean, I lost who I was to be and have the strength of an individual, what it meant to be my own person. I lost all confidence in my abilities in myself. I was very lost after my divorce. And I had this dream that one day I wanted to provide and have this home where me and my son can grow up, but not just any home, our dream home. I didn't want to relocate again. I didn't want to have my son pack up and move again. It was just a personal decision that I made. I realized that dream right after my divorce, and that was at the end of 2015. And when the budget mom started to grow, I realized that I had the opportunity to absolutely not just change our lives now, but our entire future with my son. It gave me the chance to retire early. It gave me the chance to travel with my son before I'm too old to do so, to seize opportunities that I wanted to in this short life that we are given. So what happened was I saved every penny of income that I could from my personal income, the time where I was working both my day job and running the Budget Mom, and also every single dollar that I could from my business. It's just, yeah, it's remarkable to think back now, that long journey, but it's so worth it.
How long did it take when you were consciously saving for this dream home? How long did it take you to be able to have enough to do it, to have the money?
So from 2015 to 2020. So it was right after my divorce, I started saving a little bit. Was it a lot? No, back in the day when I was still struggling with my money and my budget was tight and, I was just working my day job, it was $50 every paycheck, $100 a month here, $100 a month there. But I was very blessed and fortunate that I did have a business that was successful on this journey as well. I get a lot of people who say to me, Miko, I don't have a huge earning successful business. Is this dream a reality for me as well? And I always tell people, don't leave the big dreams to the millionaires. This dream, anything that you want in your life is absolutely attainable for anybody. I had this dream when I was a single mom making less than $24,000 a year. And I still had the dream. And so I think, it was one of those things where I had to learn how to manage my money, just not personally, but also in my business area as well.
Yeah, I really, love that. And I love how you're saying, like, it's not just the millionaires, right? And
right.
And I get it. Like, I know, because I know income for a lot of people is a thing, obviously, like, and not having enough of it. And if you're just trying to stay afloat, some of this sounds like far-fetched, like that's not me. And, I do believe though, like, if you have the thought, I've always been one of those people, if you have the thought, like thoughts don't occur to everyone. Dreams don't happen for everyone. Like your dream of buying a home in cash, like that's not, everyone doesn't think that. And so if you have been blessed to think of something or envision something, it's for a reason. It's because it's possible.
Yes, I love that so much. That is so true. I didn't believe it was possible. In the beginning, my dream was to only buy a home. Did I know how I was going to fund that? No. But I knew that dream was there. The dream to do it with cash actually wasn't realized until 2018. When a friend of mine came and said, Miko, why wouldn't you do this in cash? And I'm like, wait a minute, that's not possible. And she sat me down and she walked me through it. And at the end of it, I'm like, oh my gosh, maybe I can do this. Maybe there is a way for me to actually do this. Okay, how do I do it? What steps do I take? What changes do I make in my life? And the funny thing is, when I made the decision to buy my dream home with cash, I slept better than any other night because it was a sense of peace knowing that is the path I'm supposed to take. Mm. And I was going to fight for it. I didn't care if it took me 15 years, 20 years, I was going to do it. And I've just been extremely blessed that it was something I was able to accomplish in my life.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting, right? So some people, like if you're really crunching numbers, say, well, you could have took that money. And I don't know if you share how much the home was. I don't know if you feel comfortable sharing that or how much you saved.
No, we have not.
Okay,
so we haven't revealed the cost of my home, only for privacy and security reasons. But I told my readers, in the beginning of my journey, look, I'm going to save $400,000. That was my first initial goal. But then again, in the beginning, I didn't have a dream of just buying a home. I had a dream of building a home. And it's funny how that journey changes when you actually start living it. And I realized that building on raw land was not my journey. It was not meant for me because there's just too many unknowns for me to go into that path and into that journey. So we started with the $400,000, and that's initially where we started with as far as goals.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that because, some people crunching numbers right now is just like, well, if you put that money into an investment account, that grew over time, it'd be worth way more than what you purchased your house for. And that's the same argument where people are just like, why pay down your mortgage if it's like a lower rate versus like being able to invest it. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on why you chose like that route for people just like listening.
Yeah, so I know, are you talking about the route of buying it with cash?
Yeah, versus like you could have, you put money down on it and then been able to pay the mortgage and then invested that money somewhere else.
Yes. So there was a big reason. I was self-employed and I did not want a huge mortgage payment hanging over my head. It's literally peace of mind. Peace of mind was my biggest thing because peace of mind you can't put a value on. And I knew that if I was going to feel 100% comfortable going 100% in my business, I could not do that with debt hanging over my head, especially a mortgage payment as big as they are. It was very scary for me. I felt like if I were to have a mortgage, I would be stuck. I would have limitations on what I could accomplish in my life with what I wanted with my business and the experiences I wanted to make with my son. So it really, the funny thing is when we make decisions around our finances, sometimes it's not always just about the numbers. When I first came out and said I wanted to buy my home with cash, we got hate mail from days. We got people saying, well, it's an investment. The equity and all this stuff. I didn't care about all that. In fact, I went down to my credit union and I sat down with a home broker and he basically listed out all of my expenses, all the things I'd have to pay when, financing a home. But he also said something that had a big effect on my decision. He said, as an entrepreneur, someone who is self-employed, 100% self-employed with a business that is less than 2 years old, it's going to be really hard for you to get financing for the amount that you want. So being and having self-employment income with a business that was less than 2 years old also was something that was stressing me out as far as financing is concerned.
Yeah, I love that you brought that into play because you're right. Like our mortgage is our biggest expense. And when you have like a fixed expense like that and your income does not meet that every month, and as an entrepreneur, it fluctuates, that is stressful. That can be stressful.
Yes.
So, and you know what? I'm sure this is helpful for you as a business owner because it allows you to make decisions, to choose what you want to do. It's not like, oh, I have to like make this money to do this, and take maybe jobs or sponsorships or things I don't want to do, right? Like I can literally choose what I want to do based on the fact that it works for me, not just for money, which I think is
Yes.
amazing.
Yeah, that's so absolutely true. You know, I run a debt-free company. We do everything with cash. I mean, I run my business very, very similar to how I do in my personal life. And debt and personally still scares me. Debt in my business makes me even more scared. I've just seen too many small businesses rely on financing in the beginning, and they failed because of it. I want the freedom to be able to offer my readers things for free. Okay, one of the number one things that frustrated me so much in the beginning is because all of the products that I knew could absolutely change my life or make a difference in my life, I didn't have money for in the beginning. And that was just the honest truth. So we focus so much time and energy here at the Budget Mom providing low cost or affordable or free products that bring true value and impact to our readers' life. It's a passion of mine, and I'm able to do that because of the decisions I've made, not just in my business, but personally as well. And buying my house in cash was one of those things.
Yeah, and again, it's a testament to when you become financially secure and when you accept abundance like in your life, right? So I think too, having such a successful business, I saw like, I think this was months ago before, you know, the pandemic, you had upgraded to like a new warehouse, right? Like a bigger warehouse and office. Like your business is doing like well, right? And sometimes I think people think with personal finance or like especially when you're conscious of money, that like if you make or earn a lot, like that's selfish. And I don't think that, you know, I know you don't think that, but it just shows as a testament to when you are doing well, you can then give back. Like you can pour from a cup that's full versus like, you know, that was empty. So it's like, don't feel guilty, anyone listening, right? Like asking for more, doing what you can, because the more you can bring into yourself, the better impact you can make to your family, community. Like it's okay to earn money. It's okay to get your value and your worth.
Yes, I love that. Yes.
So one of the things I just want to bring up, because you do run a successful business and you successfully manage your personal finances, is the overlap. You already said like debt for you in either case you don't have, right? Great. And do you budget for your business similar to how you budget like personally? Because I know some business owners, right? Like that's a whole new world. Like they, even if they have their personal budget on track, like maybe their business is like not that way.
Yeah. The thing for me with my business was learning. So in the beginning, I thought that what my business earned, and what I had to learn is that no, it wasn't my money. It was my business's money. That was my first thing I had to tackle. And then of course, you know, the other things like keeping your business accounts and your personal accounts separate. That didn't happen for me until 2 years into my business, until my accountant said, stop it, what are you doing? But for me, from day one with my business, I know where every single dollar goes. You could ask me today, Miko, what has your business spent today? I can literally lay out every single dollar. Where did every single penny goes? And it's important because it allows me to make financial decisions for my business on the spot. So when I have an employee that calls me and says, hey, we need to order this for the headquarters, or we need to order this for the warehouse, I know immediately what position we are and the buying power that we do have. So yes, in the fact of awareness, it's very similar to my personal finances. However, I budget my business income monthly. Okay, with a business and a business structure, seeing longer time frames of your budget is actually, for me, a lot more helpful because I can start to see trends. And analytics and all of this, it's a lot easier. So I do run the business a little bit differently just because it's a more efficient. But I still think that, and we still spend cash. I mean, I will make a $1.1 million transaction on production runs. I will pay it in cash. And if they tell me, Miko, like, can you just like swipe your card here? I'm like, I'm giving you a check. Take it or leave it, you know? And a lot of the companies that we work with know that I run a cash only business. So as far as the cash and the tracking and the awareness, it's the same, but some of the day-to-day type of management is a little bit different.
Yeah, I love that. And, like the whole, like, yeah, if I am selling something for $20, I don't, as the business owner, don't get that $20. I get a fraction of that because it has to cover all the other expenses for my business. So can you just, maybe, yeah, what's your next, like, what are your goals, right? Whether personally, like your personal financial goals, is there like a next level that you're trying to get to? Are you familiar with the term, and you already kind of said it, like, financial independence, the FIRE movement, where like literally if you said to your right now that you did not want to work again, like you're just like, I'm done. Would you be set financially for life? Do you consider yourself financially independent at this point? Is that something you're working towards? And then I'd love to know for the business what your dreams and next goals are.
Yeah, so my number one goal right now, one, to say it out loud, I am not financially prepared enough to walk away today. And that's the honest truth. And that's only because I know my situation. My goal is to retire early. I want to retire by the time I'm 40 years old, but I also know that is a huge goal. And I might not reach it, but I can fight. Here's the thing with me. I look at my son and I see him getting older. And it's a good thing to watch your son grow up, but it's also a very scary thing because time is short. And I watch it every single day when I see my son come downstairs. I want to spend every single moment I have cherishing time with him. And retiring early will give me the ability to put 100% attention on that. And that's what I truly want for myself. I want to be able to pick up and travel with him and experience and do things with him and not have to worry about the 8 to 5 responsibility. For my business, it's always funny when people ask me, what are your goals for your business? And it's so hard for me to answer that because if you were to ask me that a year ago, I would never think in a million years we'd be here where we are today. Our goal is to always stay true to our mission and values as the budget mom, but to do it 10 times better next year. So we're always fighting to improve what we're already doing, but better. We want to do it better. I hope one day to have a bigger facility because honestly, the one that we're at, even though we just got into it, it's not big enough. And I would also like to be able to hire more employees. Do I know what that looks like? No. I made my first hire just less than a year ago, and I'm still figuring that out. But I think that if you can always have your mission, your business mission in the forefront of your mind, and you're aware of that, I think that there's no other way to go but up from there because you're always fighting for that. You're always tweaking and perfecting and making things better along the way. So as far as the business, we just hope to do what we're doing now, but to do it better.
Love it. Love it. So thanks so much. Can you let everyone know where they can find you on social and then your website and all those things?
Yeah, so you can find me. I am the Budget Mom on all social channels. So just at the Budget Mom. Instagram is where I share my daily stories and videos. I have not missed a day except for one in the last 3 years. So I show up every day for my readers there. You can find all of my detailed, helpful videos on YouTube and all of my free resources on thebudgetmom.com.
And of course, I'll link all of that so you guys can, check her out and follow her and just really dig into what she's doing. It's great. Thank you so much again, Kumiko.
Yeah, thanks for having me.